Hi, my name's Phil. I like to come out politics. So the Daily Mail has been running a misleading front page on Asylum again. So I guess it's time for the Tories to tell lies and reform UK's Lee Anderson to utterly humiliate himself yet again and then complain when people call him thick. So front page of today's Daily Mail, it's pushing the idea that the German government is to use the Rwanda scheme facilities that we paid for in order to adopt the scheme themselves, which is powerfully untrue. But before I get onto the serious example of disinformation here, which should once again be a clarion call for press reform, especially in the wake of the recent riots, we can't let Neanderthal get a pass here. Now, he was responding to a different article. This was yesterday from The Telegraph, but it was still on the issue of asylum and channel crossings. He was pushing a number of lies in his tweet, including yet again the line about people coming here across the channel being able to access public, British healthcare for free, which is not true. As part of his whining, he said that there are charities in Calais who, amongst other things, were learning them to speak English. That's what he said. Learning them to speak English. And he has the nerve to complain that we call him thick. Now, here's the thing, because some people say, oh, it's just his dialect. No, it's not. There are different patterns of speech around Britain. Like English is a mongrel language developed over a very long time and pre-industrialisation. So lots of dialects formed in regions that were largely isolated from one another. But using the word learn instead of teach, it's not rare. You hear some people say it, but it's not an aspect of any regional dialect. It's only ever thick people who didn't pay attention at school. Or people trying to be funny. There is no part of the country where learn is used synonymously with teach, right? If it were, then you'd get many more people, even better educated people, doing the same thing. Not just thick as minced specimens like the never knowingly correct on any matter MP for Ashfield. But what's really important with regards all of the various stories in the Tory client media on the subject of asylum is that even those with an adequate command of the English language and writing these articles are deliberately misinforming their readers. So let's go over some of the things where they are just wrong. So first of all, we'll take the Daily Mail headline, the front page from today, because it's intended to be inflammatory. It makes the claim that, Labour have scrapped the Rwanda scheme. I don't know why, because it's illegal. But why are Germany doing it then? They would like to use the facilities set up for their own version of the scheme. Germany do not have their own version of the scheme. It would be as illegal for Germany to do this as the UK. What Germany are proposing is something that lots of countries have either done or thought about, including various UK governments, is to have offshore processing centres. There are also good reasons why even this shouldn't be done, which is mostly why these schemes never actually implemented or don't last long when they are. The last Labour government, for example, have thought of doing something like this and then abandoned the idea. But politically, there's many reasons in favour of it. What causes a lot of domestic angst is the idea of people claiming asylum in their country who might be doing so dishonestly. Immigration is a political hot potato in most countries, and asylum the hottest of all potatoes. And we can particularly see the way the British media try and portray these people as, they're not really asylum seekers. They're all fighting age men, which will be why 6 children this week died in the Channel, right? So the idea is, if you process the claims offshore, then you don't, and you can do that with all asylum claims, you technically don't have any asylum seekers in your country at all. And then once they're processed, if their claims are verified, they then come back as officially refugees. They're no longer asylum seekers. The asylum seeker's been accepted. The asylum's been claimed. So they're refugees with the right to work and they can pay their own way, contribute to taxation and so on. It takes the sting out of dealing with asylum. That's what Germany are proposing. Sending asylum seekers to Rwanda for processing, just to get them off German soil until the claims are processed. And then those who are unsuccessful could be deported wherever they were processed. And those who are successful will be brought to Germany and then can work and live and the rest of it. It's inefficient. It's not the most humane way to deal with asylum seekers, but it massively reduces the public opposition to many asylum issues. And most importantly, it can be done legally. What the Tories tried to do was send asylum seekers to Rwanda for processing, which was fine, but then the successful claimants would not come back to Britain. They would be forced to remain in Rwanda. This is what made it very, very illegal, as confirmed by the Supreme Court. And as they made clear, it was not just a breach of the European Convention on Human Rights, but multiple other laws as well, including domestic laws. But what the Mail are doing is making the claim that it is possible to run the Rwanda plan because Germany's doing it. And we all know Germany is a signatory of the European Convention on Human Rights. In fact, it was essentially made for them. And this does two things. First of all, because they're making a false statement about something the government can and can't do, you're creating a level of unfair mistrust in politics, which creates a disconnect between the public and government, because the public think, well, the government have made this decision, but it doesn't make sense. They're up to no good, right? So you don't trust your government. So where do you put your trust in? Charlatans, right? Second, it's stoking anti-immigration sentiment, in this case specifically anti-asylum sentiment, exactly the sort of disinformation which helped fuel the riots last month. Now, there's a lot of focus right now on the role of social media for failing to shut down disinformation, if not actively promoting it, particularly on Twitter. Well, what about some parts of our traditional media, print and broadcast media? The Daily Mail are an example of an outlet that has been actively pushing disinformation for generations. And what they have on the front page of their paper today is disinformation. They are knowingly lying to their readers. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Make editors and others who produce and publish anything related to news or current affairs criminally responsible for the accuracy of their content. I mean, you know, what are the government at the moment going to do? They're going to put a lot of focus on trying to persuade social media companies who are mostly based in other countries to toughen up their act against disinformation, which they should do. But they're going to ignore traditional media that is based in this country and they can easily legislate against. I mean, even if we did that, of course, we would still have problems with the way news is spun in comment pieces. Can't control that, and no government should control that. You know, for example, the Telegraph article, which inspired Lee Anderson to parade his ignorance yet again. And this is a comment piece. The headline, France doesn't care about Britain's border. The French see the illegal channel crossings as a problem of the UK's creation. Now, there's a few things you could say about this. First, the crossings are not illegal if for the purpose of claiming asylum. I don't know how often it has to be pointed out. If someone is in the country illegally, they can be deported. No court will even seek to block them. The courts apply the law. That's sort of their thing. So if the government can't deport someone, do you know what it is? It's because they're not in the country illegally, or at least there's no proof they are at the moment. So if you want that proof, if you believe it, find the proof, process them. It's why Labour, although they haven't made a big song and dance about it, Labour have actually been deporting record numbers of people since forming power. Why? Because they've just got on with the job of processing claims, dealing with the asylum backlog properly. And do you know what happens when you process claims? Yes, most of those claims are going to be valid, and then you're going to accept them into the country, which most people have no problem with. But it also means you're going to find out the ones who cannot prove their claim, and you can deport them. Second issue is, of course, the channel crossings are a problem of the UK's creation. Of course they are. Ridiculous to suggest otherwise. It was caused by a number of political decisions made by the Conservative government, not the least of which was ending the process of claiming asylum without having to make unsafe channel crossings. In other words, blocking safe routes for asylum. And if the Labour government don't change that policy, they're not going to end channel crossings either. Doesn't matter how many smuggling gangs they crack. And the third thing to point out is that, I mean, it shouldn't need pointing out, the French act in France's interest, not ours. When was the last time you ever saw these charlatans arguing that we should do something to help another country, even if it was not in our interest? Apart from Russia. Forget about Russia for a moment. They're always doing it for Russia, sure. But when did they ever argue we should put ourselves out for another country? They never did and never will. So the idea that France should do so just speaks of their incredible conceit and hypocrisy. It's all this sort of British exceptionalism again, isn't it? You know, we would do so much better as a country and society if we had a media that first of all told the truth to the public. And that is something I think the government could legislate for. Force them to tell the truth. And where opinions are coming, because you will always get opinions. You can't say, well, you can't have comment pieces. There will always be opinions, and those opinions will be politically spun, sure. But make sure those opinions put the emphasis on governments taking responsibility for their own actions, not finding someone to blame. And as for MPs, the idea that Lee Anderson gets to complain about, for example, our taxpayer-funded asylum system, when he was part of the party which caused those costs to spiral out of all control because they stopped processing claims, is something that should be called out all day long. Our asylum costs are very, very small if we just process claims as and when they are made. It's the fact that we stopped them, which meant that we had then a massively inflated accommodation bill. The visible problems that we have in this country with asylum are entirely down to policies which people like Anderson supported and even voted for. They are literally like an arsonist complaining about all the smoke. Because although he is at least very firmly on the opposition benches now, the damage that he and his ilk have done is still forming part of the way the current government has to behave. Because even Labour have to put the emphasis on action against the smuggling gangs. We don't really know a lot about what they're doing to deal with the real issues. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.